The moment I saw John Grayson's hand slide down my wife's back, stopping just above the curve of her hip, I knew something was deeply wrong. The scene played out like a movie through the glass walls of his corner office. Linda stiffening, subtly shifting away, that professional smile faltering for just a second before reassembling itself. It wasn't the first time I'd suspected something, but it was the first time I'd witnessed it. My blood ran cold, then hot, then ice cold again. I gripped Linda's forgotten laptop tighter, wondering if this moment would be the one that changed everything. Let me back up a bit. My name's Mike Thompson. My wife Linda and I have been married for 8 years. College sweethearts who somehow managed to make it work in the real world. She's brilliant, driven, with a marketing mind that could sell ice to polar bears. 2 years ago, she landed what she called her dream job at Everett Media, one of those sleek digital marketing firms with exposed brick walls, free kombucha on tap, and executives who wore designer jeans instead of suits. The first year was great. Linda would come home buzzing with ideas, talking about impression metrics and conversion rates like they were the most fascinating things in the world. I loved seeing her so engaged, so passionate. She'd been brought onto a team led by John Grayson, the company's golden boy who doubled their client list in just 3 years. He was exactly what you'd picture. Tall, perpetually tanned, with that perfect salt and pepper hair that expensive barbershops specialize in. The kind of guy who casually drops references to his weekend sailing trips and has never worn a shirt that wasn't tailored. He's so smart, Mike, Linda had told me early on. I'm learning so much from him. Then about 3 months ago, something shifted. The energetic rundowns of her workday became shorter, vaguer. She stopped mentioning John's name. When I asked about work, she'd shrug and say, "Same old stuff." She started having trouble sleeping, checking her phone constantly with a slight frown. At first, I chalked it up to work stress. Her team was handling a major campaign for a new client. But then I started noticing other things. Her leaving earlier in the mornings, changing outfits multiple times before work, coming home later. One night I found her sitting in our darkened kitchen at 2 a.m., staring into a glass of wine she hadn't touched. "Can't sleep?" I asked, sliding into the chair across from her. She jumped slightly. "Just thinking about the Carter campaign." "Is that what's been bothering you lately?" "Nothing's bothering me," she said too quickly. "It's just busy season." "Linda, I've known you for 12 years. I know when something's wrong." She took a deep breath, opened her mouth like she was about to speak, then closed it again. "It's nothing I can't handle," she finally said, squeezing my hand before heading back to bed. A week later, she called me in a panic. "I left my laptop at home," she said, her voice tight. "I have a presentation in an hour. Could you bring it by?" "Of course," I said. "Be there in 20. That's how I ended up in the lobby of Everett Media, Linda's MacBook in hand, staring through that glass wall at John Grayson's wandering hand. I called Linda's cell. Through the glass, I watched her check her phone, excuse herself, and walk out to meet me. She looked exhausted up close, dark circles carefully concealed under makeup that was starting to fade after hours in the office. "Thanks for saving me," she said, forcing a smile as she took the laptop. "I would have been screwed without this." "Everything okay up there?" I asked carefully, nodding toward the office. Something flickered across her face. Fear? Shame? "Just busy. The Carter presentation is today." She kissed my cheek quickly. "I better get back." I watched her walk away, noticing how her shoulders hunched slightly, how different her posture was from the confident stride she used to have. As I drove back home, a cold knot of certainty formed in my stomach. Something was very wrong, and I had a sickening feeling I knew what it was. That night I waited until we were both in bed, the darkness making it easier to say difficult things. "Linda," I said quietly, "what's going on with John Grayson?" The silence stretched so long, I thought she might pretend to be asleep. Then I felt her body shake slightly. She was crying. "Oh God," she whispered. "You noticed?" I turned on the bedside lamp. Her face was blotchy, eyes red. "I saw him touch you today when I dropped off your laptop." She sat up, pulling her knees to her chest. "It started with small things," she said, her voice barely audible. "Compliments about my outfits, standing too close during meetings. Then it was lunch invitations to discuss my future at the company. Coffee breaks where he'd find ways to touch my hand or shoulder." My jaw tightened. "And it's gotten worse?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Last month, he called me into his office to discuss the Carter account. When I got up to leave, he blocked the door and said, 'You know, Your performance review is coming up. I'd love to give you that promotion we discussed, but these things go better when there's a strong, personal connection between teammates. I felt my pulse quicken, anger rising. Did he touch you? Hurt you? No, nothing physical. Yet, she said. But last week after the team meeting, he cornered me in the supply closet, said he was tired of playing games and that I needed to show my commitment to the company. When I tried to leave, he put his hand on the door. For a second, she shuddered. For a second, I thought he was going to force himself on me. Then someone walked by in the hall, and I used that moment to slip past him. Jesus, I hissed, my fists clenched involuntarily. We need to report this guy, now. To who? Linda laughed bitterly. HR reports directly to him. The head of HR, Vanessa, is his golf buddy's wife, and it would be my word against his, the company superstar who brought in the Carter account. I got out of bed, pacing the room. What about other women at the company? Has he done this to anyone else? Linda's eyes met mine. Amy in graphic design hinted at something similar happening to her, and Sarah from the content team suddenly transferred to another department last year. There were rumors, but nobody talks about it openly. They're all too afraid of losing their jobs. We need proof, I said, my mind already working through possibilities. Something concrete. She shook her head. He's careful. It's always just us in his office, and he never puts anything inappropriate in emails or texts. It's all verbal, all deniable. I pulled her close, feeling her tears dampen my shirt. We'll figure this out, I promised. You're not alone in this. That night, neither of us slept. My mind raced through scenarios, discarding one after another. By morning, I had the beginnings of a plan. I have an idea, I told her over coffee, but I need you to be okay with it. After explaining my thoughts, Linda looked both terrified and determined. Let's do it, she said finally. I'm tired of being afraid to go to work. That afternoon, I visited a specialty electronics shop downtown. The salesman raised an eyebrow when I described what I needed, but didn't ask questions. I walked out with a tiny camera disguised as a decorative turtle, complete with a memory card that could record for hours. They have that big aquarium in the common area, I explained to Linda that evening, as I showed her how to position and activate the device. Nobody will look twice at a turtle figurine. Just put it somewhere with a view of his office. Her hands shook as she practiced turning it on. What if he finds it? It looks like ordinary decor, but even if he does, so what? It's not illegal to have a turtle figurine in an office. The next morning, Linda texted me, "Turtle is swimming. Wish me luck." For 3 agonizing days, we waited. Linda reported that John had been unusually restrained, mostly keeping to group meetings. On the 4th day, that changed. He asked me to stay late to review the Carter numbers. Just us. My stomach clenched. Do you want me to come pick you up? Please. Around 7? I was parked outside Everett Media at 6:30, alternating between checking my watch and staring up at the windows of the 14th floor. At 6:55, my phone rang. It was Linda, but when I answered, she didn't speak. I could hear ambient office sounds, then John's voice, smooth as expensive whiskey. Linda, you've been doing excellent work on the Carter account. Thank you. Linda's voice was professional, careful. The client specifically mentioned your presentation. That's the kind of attention that gets rewarded around here. A pause. I'm glad they appreciated it. The team worked hard. The team, yes. John's voice moved closer. But you were the standout. I'm thinking about that senior marketing strategist position opening next quarter. It would be a significant step up. That would be amazing. Linda's voice brightened genuinely for the first time. I think you'd be perfect for it. We should discuss it further. Perhaps over dinner this weekend? I know a fantastic little place in the Back Bay. Very private. We could talk about your future with the company. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. That's not necessary. Linda's voice turned cooler. We can discuss it here during business hours. Some conversations are better had away from the office, John continued smoothly. Over a good bottle of wine, perhaps. My treat, of course. John, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think dinner's appropriate. Appropriate? He chuckled, but there was an edge to it. We're talking about your career, Linda. Don't you want to advance? The senior strategist role comes with a 30% pay increase. Wouldn't you and Mike appreciate that? For your future? The mention of my name in his mouth made my blood boil. I'd prefer to earn advancement based on my work. Linda said firmly. Of course you will. John's voice dripped with condescension. This is just how relationships are built in this industry. Networking, connection, chemistry. I'm married, Linda stated flatly. And I respect that, John said, not sounding respectful at all. This isn't about your personal life. It's about demonstrating your commitment to the company, to the team, to me. A silence. Then Linda's voice, steel beneath the politeness. I'm committed to doing excellent work. That's where my commitment ends. That's disappointing, John's tone hardened. You know, the Carter account needs someone who's fully invested. Someone who understands give and take. I'd hate to have to reassign you. Are you threatening my position because I won't have dinner with you? I'm explaining how career advancement works, Linda. Nothing more. I think I should go now, Linda said. Think about it, John urged. The offer stands. For now. I heard movement, then Linda's voice directly into the phone. I'm coming down. 5 minutes later, she slid into the passenger seat, visibly shaking. You heard? She asked. I nodded, too angry to speak immediately. We got him, I finally managed. Between this and the turtle footage, we have enough. What if it's not? Tears welled in her eyes. What if they still don't believe me? I took her hand. Then we go nuclear. Local news, social media, lawyers, whatever it takes. But first, let's try internal channels. That evening, we reviewed the footage from the turtle camera. It had captured 3 separate incidents over the past 3 days. John cornering Linda by the printer, his hand lingering on her shoulder as he leaned over to look at her screen, and most damning, him blocking her exit from his office while standing uncomfortably close. The audio wasn't perfect, but you could clearly hear phrases like special arrangement and private understanding. This is it, I said grimly. This is our evidence. The next morning, we called Everett Media's HR department and requested an urgent meeting with Vanessa Reed, the HR director. Surprisingly, she agreed to see us that afternoon. Vanessa was exactly as Linda had described her, polished, professional, with a politician's smile that never reached her eyes. She listened impassively as Linda described John's behavior, occasionally making notes but showing no reaction. These are serious allegations, she said finally, but as I'm sure you understand, we need more than verbal accusations. We have recordings, I said, placing a USB drive on her desk, audio from yesterday and video from the past week. Vanessa's eyebrows rose slightly, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her. Recording without consent is problematic from a legal standpoint. Not as problematic as sexual harassment and creating a hostile work environment, I countered. Linda has endured months of this. And she's not the only one, is she? Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes. I can't comment on other employees. You don't need to. We've already spoken with Amy Davidson and Sarah Chen. They're willing to come forward too. This was a calculated bluff. We'd reached out to both women, but hadn't heard back yet. But Vanessa's reaction, a slight widening of the eyes, a tightening of her mouth, told me everything. I'll need to review these materials, she said carefully, and consult with our legal team. Of course, Linda replied. In the meantime, I don't feel comfortable working directly with John. That can be arranged temporarily, Vanessa conceded. I'll be in touch within 48 hours. As we left the building, Linda sagged against me. Do you think it worked? I think we just lit a fire under Everett Media's very expensive leather chair, I said. Now we wait. But waiting wasn't in the cards. That evening, my phone rang with an unknown number. Is this Mike Thompson? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's this? My name is Amy Davidson. I work with Linda at Everett. She gave me your number. I sat up straighter. Yes, Amy. Thank you for calling. Linda mentioned you're gathering evidence against John. Her voice was hesitant. I've been dealing with his attention for over a year now. Would you be willing to go on record about it? A pause. I wasn't before, but after Linda told me she's fighting back, yes, I'll do it. And I have text messages. Text messages? I couldn't believe our luck. He's more careful with newer employees like Linda, but he got sloppy with me. Sent late-night texts asking me to come to his place to review portfolios. Suggested a weekend creative retreat at his beach house. Just the two of us. Amy, this is exactly what we need. Can you forward those to Linda? Already did, she said. And I'm not the only one. I've been talking to Sarah Chen. She's willing to come forward too. By morning, our case against John Grayson had grown exponentially. 5 women in total had contacted Linda overnight, each with their own story and some with evidence. The next day, Linda was assigned to work remotely. The day after that, Vanessa called Linda into the office, alone. "I need to do this part myself," Linda insisted when I offered to come along. "I need to look her in the eye." I paced our apartment for 3 hours until Linda returned, her expression unreadable. "Well?" I asked anxiously. A slow smile spread across her face. "John's been suspended pending investigation. They've already interviewed Amy. Those texts were damning, and Sarah's flying in to give a statement." Relief flooded through me. "They believed you." "Better than that," Linda said, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. "Vanessa admitted they'd received complaints before, but nothing they could substantiate. She apologized for not creating a safer reporting mechanism." "So what happens now?" "They're launching a formal investigation with an outside firm. I've been offered paid leave, but I declined. I'm not hiding. And they guaranteed in writing that my position and compensation are secure, regardless of the outcome." I pulled her into a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of you." For 5 days, the investigation proceeded quietly. Linda returned to the office, reporting that John's absence was the subject of wild speculation. Then on the 6th day, everything exploded. Linda called me from work, her voice tight with excitement. "You need to get down here." "What's happening?" "John showed up. He's making a scene in the lobby. Security's trying to remove him, but he's demanding to see the CEO." I was in my car before she finished speaking. "I'm on my way. Stay upstairs, away from him." When I arrived at Everett Media 15 minutes later, the lobby was in chaos. A small crowd of employees had gathered near the reception desk, where John Grayson, disheveled, red-faced, and clearly intoxicated, was shouting at a security guard. "I built this company," he slurred, gesturing wildly. "30 million in accounts last year alone. And you're throwing me out over some lying bitch?" The security guard, a stoic man in his 50s, stood firm. "Sir, you need to leave the premises. You're not authorized to be here." "Not authorized?" John laughed bitterly. "I'm a founding partner. I have a corner office on the 14th floor." "Not anymore, Mr. Grayson," a familiar voice cut in. Vanessa Reed emerged from the crowd, tablet in hand. "As of this morning, the board voted to terminate your employment for cause. This decision is final." John's face contorted with rage. "You can't do this to me. I'll sue this company into the ground." "I wouldn't recommend that, John," Vanessa replied coolly. "The evidence is substantial. Multiple witnesses, electronic communications, video footage. Do you really want all of that made public in a courtroom?" For a moment, I thought John might lunge at her. Instead, he seemed to deflate slightly, looking around at the gathered employees, many of them women watching with expressions ranging from shock to grim satisfaction. "You're all in on this, aren't you?" he muttered. "A conspiracy. Where's Linda? This was her idea, wasn't it?" I stepped forward, unable to contain myself. "Leave my wife out of this, Grayson. You did this to yourself." His bloodshot eyes found mine, narrowing in recognition. "You, the devoted husband." His voice dripped with contempt. "You think you've won? This isn't over. Not by a long shot." The security guard moved between us. "That's enough, sir. Don't make this worse for yourself." "Fine, I'll go." John straightened his rumpled jacket with a pathetic attempt at dignity. "But remember this moment. All of you. You'll regret crossing me." As security escorted him to the exit, he turned back for one parting shot. "Tell Linda I'll see her around. We have unfinished business." The threat sent ice through my veins. I pulled out my phone to call Linda, but before I could dial, the elevator doors opened and she stepped out, flanked by 2 colleagues. "Mike?" She looked surprised. "What are you doing down here?" I moved quickly to her side. "John was just here, making threats." Her face paled. "What did he say?" "Nothing specific, but I don't like his tone. We should be careful for a while." 1 week later, the other shoe dropped. An all-staff email announced that John Grayson had been terminated for violations of company policy. The corporate euphemism wasn't fooling anyone. That weekend, Linda received calls from 5 other women at Everett Media, each with their own John Grayson story. One had left the company because of him. Another had transferred to a lower-paying position to avoid him. All of them thanked Linda for having the courage they hadn't found. The story might have ended there. Justice served, predator removed. But John Grayson had one more act to perform. 2 weeks after his dramatic exit, Linda and I were having dinner at our favorite restaurant when my phone buzzed with a text from our neighbor, Ted. Someone's prowling around your backyard. Called police. Stay away until they check it out. I showed Linda the message, and we immediately called for the check. It's probably nothing, I said, not believing it for a second. By the time we arrived home, 2 police cruisers were parked outside our house. An officer approached as we pulled up. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, we've apprehended an intruder on your property. My heart raced. Who is it? Says his name is John Grayson. Claims he was just dropping off work documents for Mrs. Thompson, but he was trying to force open your back door when we arrived. Linda's hand found mine, squeezing tight. He doesn't have any work documents for me. I don't work with him anymore. The officer nodded. He's being processed for attempted breaking and entering. We found some concerning items in his vehicle as well. Binoculars, gloves, a knife. Does he have any legitimate reason to have your home address? None whatsoever, I said firmly. Then I suggest you file for a restraining order first thing tomorrow. This looks like stalking behavior. That night we barely slept, jumping at every sound. The next morning we went straight to the courthouse to file for the restraining order. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed our evidence and John's arrest report. Granted, she said, stamping the form. Mr. Grayson is to remain at least 500 feet from both of you, your home, and Mrs. Thompson's workplace for a minimum of 1 year. We thought that would be the end of it. We were wrong. 3 days later, Linda left work to find all 4 tires on her car slashed. A note under the windshield wiper read, "I'm not done with you." The day after that, someone hacked her work email, sending pornographic images to the entire company with a message claiming Linda had been trading sexual favors for her promotion. It quickly traced the hack to an internet cafe near John's apartment. Then came the phone calls, dozens of them, at all hours, from different numbers. When we answered, there was only breathing, or occasionally laughter. "He's spiraling," Linda said after the 20th call in 2 days. "This isn't just revenge anymore. It's obsession." We filed police reports for each incident, but the officers seemed reluctant to act. "Without catching him in the act, it's hard to prove he's behind all this," one explained apologetically. "So we just wait until he escalates to something worse?" I demanded. The officer had no good answer. That night, we decided to take matters into our own hands. I called Eric, an old college friend who now worked in private security. "We need help," I explained, detailing John's escalating behavior. "The police aren't doing enough." "I've seen this pattern before," Eric said grimly. "Guys like this don't stop until they're forced to. I can put together a security assessment for your home and help you set up some countermeasures." The next day, Eric arrived with equipment and a plan. We installed motion-activated cameras around our property, reinforced locks on all doors and windows, and set up a silent alarm system that would alert both us and a private security team if triggered. "This will help," Eric assured us, "but the best deterrent is letting him know you're not easy targets. These guys prey on fear." Taking his advice, I posted conspicuously on social media about our new home security system, courtesy of Northeast Security, Eric's company, making sure to tag John so he would see it. For a week, things were quiet. No slashed tires, no threatening notes, no phone calls. We started to relax, cautiously optimistic that John had gotten the message. Then came the email. It arrived in Linda's personal account with an attachment. Photos of us, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. Us leaving our house, shopping at the grocery store, having dinner at a restaurant, walking to our car in the company parking garage. The message was simple. "I'm always watching." This time the police took it seriously. The detective assigned to our case presented the evidence to the district attorney, who agreed to press charges for stalking and violating the restraining order. When police went to arrest John, they found his apartment empty, clothes gone, toiletries missing, laptop nowhere to be found. He'd fled. For 3 weeks, we lived in a state of constant vigilance, jumping at unexpected noises, checking our rearview mirrors for trailing cars. Linda took a leave of absence from work. I started working from home. We barely left the house except for essentials. Then, just as suddenly as he disappeared, John resurfaced. Not at our home or Linda's workplace, but at Amy Davidson's apartment building. Amy called Linda in a panic. "He's here, in the lobby. The doorman won't let him up, but he won't leave either. He keeps saying he just wants to talk, to explain his side." "Don't engage with him," Linda warned. "Call the police. We'll come over." By the time we arrived, 2 police cruisers were parked outside Amy's building. John sat handcuffed in the back of one, glaring through the window as officers spoke with Amy on the sidewalk. He didn't physically threaten me, she was explaining, but he kept saying he knew I was the one who showed those texts to HR, that I betrayed him after everything he'd done for my career. The arresting officer approached us. Mr. Grayson will be charged with violating the restraining order. Given his flight risk, we'll request he be held without bail. Will that stick? I asked skeptically. Honestly, probably not for long, but it gives us time to build a stronger case. We've seized his phone and laptop. If he's been stalking multiple victims, we'll find evidence. They did. John's devices revealed the full extent of his obsession, not just with Linda, but with every woman who had testified against him. He'd created detailed files on each, including photos, schedules, and disturbing notes about making them pay. Most damning was his browser history, showing searches for untraceable poisons, how to break in without leaving evidence, and revenge on lying women. The district attorney upgraded the charges to aggravated stalking and criminal harassment. This time, the judge denied bail. 6 months later, we sat in a courtroom as John Grayson, formerly the golden boy of Boston's marketing scene, was sentenced to 5 years in prison, with an additional 5 years of supervised probation after release. As they led him away, he looked directly at Linda, his eyes burning with hatred. She met his gaze steadily, unflinching, until he was gone. Outside the courthouse, Linda turned to me. "It's really over." "Yes," I said, pulling her close. "It's over." That evening, as we sat on our back porch, watching the sunset with wine glasses in hand for the first time in months, Linda said, "You know what's strange? I actually feel sorry for him." "Sorry?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "After everything he did." "Not in an excusing way," she clarified. "But imagine living with that much hatred, that much need to control others. What a sad, empty life." I thought about John Grayson, who had everything: success, respect, wealth, and threw it all away for the twisted pleasure of power and control. "Some men mistake fear for respect," I said. "They think being powerful means making others feel small." Linda nodded. "I'm just glad he can't hurt anyone else for a long time." The next morning, Linda went back to work at Everett Media, where Vanessa had implemented a new anonymous reporting system for harassment. The Carter account was thriving under Linda's leadership. The aquarium in the common area still bubbled peacefully, minus one decorative turtle that now sat on our mantel at home. A reminder that sometimes the smallest things can trigger the biggest changes. 3 months later, Linda was officially promoted to senior marketing strategist, the position John had once dangled as bait. On her first day in the new role, she found a small gift on her desk, a beautiful glass paperweight in the shape of a turtle, with a note from the women of Everett Media. "Thank you for helping us all come out of our shells." That night, as we celebrated with champagne, Linda raised her glass in a toast. "To standing your ground." I smiled, raising my own glass, "and to having each other's backs." Some people call what happened to John Grayson unfair. I call it justice. Because when you build your success on the fear and pain of others, you're not building success at all. You're just creating your own downfall, one victim at a time.
The moral of the story is that true power is never built on fear, manipulation, or the exploitation of others. When success is achieved by leaving a trail of victims, it creates a fragile empire that will inevitably collapse under the weight of the truth. It also highlights the profound strength of unity, whether it's the unwavering support between a husband and wife or the collective courage of victims coming forward. Bullies and predators rely on their victims' silence, but when people stand their ground and fight back with undeniable evidence, justice will ultimately prevail.